let's get shit fired up. So, over the course of the past week, first of all, I've been playing a lot of Starfield, as you've noticed if you've been watching my social media streams. But I have also spent a substantial amount of time looking at a fairly unusual source for digital art instruction, and that is, I have been watching a lot of traditional oil painters. And what I find is interesting about this is that the way that they approach teaching is very different. And kind of the difference I see is usually when I watch a digital artist and they're going over the way that they instruct people to do this and that or the other. They say, here's how to do a thing. And they kind of come at it from a perspective that feels very much like they expect you to have gone to art school, or at the very least, to have taken a few classes. And they don't seem to understand what those classes were good for. They seem to think that that most of the work was them just drawing every day or whatever. And that's really kind of not how it works. But I've also been watching two channels in particular. I've been watching Florent Fage, who's a French oil painter, very traditional. And I've been watching Pinku Paints, who's much earlier in his art journey and much earlier in his channel success. Although, he's only been doing this for a little while. He's got 3 to 4 times as many subscribers as I do. Clearly, he's doing something right, and I'm not. But both of these people are appealing to me in slightly different ways. Pinku Paints is appealing because he's very earnest, he's very honest, his heart's in the right place. He's coming at this from the same kind of place that I am. He's like, I want to do this thing, and I'm going to figure out how to do that thing. I like this. He reminds me of me, so I like that very much. And then Florent Fage is... he's a fairly accomplished oil painter. But the way he explains stuff makes more sense to me. It's like he actually understands the process he's going through. It's not just, oh, well, you do a whole lot of this and you just magically get good. And I think a large part of that is that when you're a digital artist, doing a whole lot of drawing or a whole lot of painting, for that matter, is essentially free. You don't have to worry about anything, really. So you got all this stuff you're working on, and every time you draw or paint something, it's basically free. You don't have to buy a new canvas. You don't have to buy paints. You don't have to buy, solvents and thinners and all of this stuff. And one of the things that Florent was talking about was skin tones. And I found this really, really fascinating, because what he said was every single skin tone can be created from burnt sienna, white, and black. Well, burnt sienna, titanium white, and ivory black. So I'm just using like raw black for this. And if I come into this and I blend, if I blend this across into the white, you can indeed see that it's producing all kinds of skin tone-like colors. Of course, blending with oil paint is substantially more complex and nuanced than blending with digital tools. But you can see here that that we're generating a whole bunch of effective skin tones. If I come over here, we have kind of a desaturated skin tone here. And if I just kind of add in some a little more burnt sienna, we can bring that outward and we can get more of a skin tone to it. And we can add some you can kind of lighten it up there. And it doesn't give you the kind of bright, cartoony, anime-style skin tones, obviously, but that's a reasonable skin tone for like that's a reasonable skin tone for a person. And that's all come from just this burnt sienna thing. And if you take it, you just go, well, I'm looking for something a little bit pinker. Well, just adjust your hue a little bit. And you can go, well, let's get a little bit more orange. Let's go a little darker. Let's go a little more in the pink direction. Let's go a little less saturated. And say, let's go a little more value. Let's go a little less saturation. And you can get exactly the kind of thing that you're looking for. And I found this tremendously helpful in a way that I don't really find a lot of coloring tutorials on digital art that helpful. Now, this doesn't give you that kind of what I typically do for a skin tone. Is I'll come way up here and I'll just go, oh, this very, very bright thing. But skin isn't typically that bright, so you'll lower the brightness down a little bit. And you can go substantially lower on the brightness. But there are cartoony skin tones, and then there are more realistic skin tones. And I just found this kind of, I just found this approach to it absolutely fascinating. Because on top of this, he said that if you want to understand how to paint skin, what you want to do is you want to paint an egg. You start with your basic skin tone, like this. And brown eggs are kind of like already skin tones. So you start with your basic egg shape, and then you just lay in. You just take that down darker, and you go, okay, here's the shadow on the egg. And he was saying that you blend this in, and by painting from the model of an egg, typically using reference, you can figure out how to get a better series of skin tones. You just kind of go a little bit less saturated, a little bit higher value. You get in your highlight. I'm not doing a great job on this, but that's okay. I'm just kind of talking about this. I'm not saying I'm good at this. I'm saying that It's a technique that I have found somewhat helpful. And the process of making an egg-shaped item look properly shaded is the same process you'll use for making skin look properly shaded, for putting the highlights on it, for putting the shadows on it. And because that's the same basic thing, working from an egg as still life is going to teach you all of the skills that you need to paint a face, because you'll know how light interacts with it when the light comes from this angle and the object sitting at that angle. And that was an interesting look at things, because it gives you this kind of practical application that you can follow to actually get somewhere without just going, oh, just paint a lot. Oh, just paint a lot. You'll paint a lot of stuff, and you'll figure out how things are shaded and how things are highlighted. No, you won't. That's not going to work. You can do things the wrong way over and over again, and it won't teach you the right way ever at all. And in much the same way, it's like, if people just give this advice about digital art that I don't think is good advice, but nobody really questions it, because if somebody that's good at art gives you bad advice on how to get good at art, nobody ever wants to question that advice and go, is that good advice? Nobody even wants to ask the question, is that really how this person got good at doing that? And I think that's really sort of a mistake on our part. If you're not asking, is this really the process they used? Then you're not paying enough attention to the question of whether that's the right process to follow. Like what I'm doing right here is I'm blending down into the shadow and not from the shadow up into the main body of everything. I think blending from the main body up might be the right direction to go. But I'm also kind of wondering, does it really matter? And I feel like from an oil painting perspective, I feel like oil painters are always operating from the perspective of, oh, well, you can fix it if you don't do it right. And your digital painters are often operating from a perspective of, well, you could start over if you don't do it right. You can press Control Z. You have undo. You have erase. You have all of these things. Whereas an oil painter doesn't really have all of those options. They have a far more limited palette of things that they can use. And I don't know that I'm doing an especially good job rendering this egg that I made up in my head. Especially because I keep dragging the background into it. But the process of just kind of evolving the shape and also I have this opportunity to I could sort of drag the shadow out of the egg. And by dragging the surrounding color in, you could kind of get that reflected light going on. But there are interesting things that you can get from a digital perspective, and there are interesting things that you can get from an oil painting perspective. And I think looking at both of those perspectives, I think the kind of dual media examination has a certain degree of value. But kind of one of the things that has been bothering me for a substantial amount of time is I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's missing. And I think the reason it's missing is because digital artists just kind of presume that you are already doing certain things. And they never talk about how to do those things or how to get good at them. And I'm not sure why there's this like blind spot, but the sort of the working hypothesis that I've got on this is that a lot of digital artists are fairly young, and because they're fairly young, they've had art teachers in school. And those art teachers in school have directed their efforts at learning art. And because they've directed those efforts, there's a lot of stuff they learned that they don't know how to teach because they didn't understand they were being taught. And I think that's something a lot of people go through that they just plain don't recognize, is they're being taught something, but they don't understand they're being taught something, and they just feel like they learned it, and they learned it by just doing a thing. Like one of the things that I had an art teacher back in school, back when I was in like 7th, 8th grade. I had an art teacher who was watching me try to draw like a comic book superhero. And I kept like drawing it and it didn't look right, and I'd crumple it up and I'd throw it away, and then I'd draw it and it didn't look right, and I'd crumple it up and I'd throw it away, and I kept doing this and doing this and doing this, and finally he came over and he took the one that I was working on, and he took the trash can full of things that I'd thrown away, and he took me up to the front of the room where he had a light table, and he put the one I was working on the light table and turned on the little light. And then he started taking all of the ones out of the trash that I was throwing away, and he started putting them on top of the one that I had been working on and lining them up. And they were all the same. They all had the same problems over and over again with proportions and with foreshortening and all of that. And he said, if you don't fix the things you screw up, you're just teaching yourself to keep screwing them up. And that didn't actually help me a whole hell of a lot because I didn't know what I was screwing up or what was wrong. But one of the other things that guy did was that particular teacher told me that I should try to draw a rocky canyon. And the way he said to do it, he said, rocks are just basically cubes. So what you do is you draw a cube with kind of shaky, uneven edges. And then you shade it by saying this part is farthest from the light, and this part is closest to the light, and this part is kind of in between. So you have a light shade and a dark shade. And you just do that over and over again with cubes, and you'll develop this kind of Rocky Canyon look. And he improved that Rocky Canyon bit by bit as I drew it. He said, okay, now I want you to draw some things that aren't exactly cubes, just get more ridiculous with their sides. And bit by bit, by saying, okay, do this again, but do this little piece. Do this again, but do this little piece. Do this again, but do this little piece. He added individual little pieces that added up to me drawing the best picture I've ever drawn of a Rocky Canyon. I don't have it anymore, and I don't remember all of the steps he told me to go through. But I do remember he told me to go through these things, and each time I was like amazed that it got so much better this time, and it got so much better that time, and it got so much better here, and it got so much better there. And that guy was a really good teacher. I feel like a lot of people are going through a process like that in school, in art class, sometimes in actual art school, and they just don't realize that it is this process they're being led through that is making their art better, and not just them saying, okay, here's a thing that I'm going to practice. I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to get better at it. And they just kind of discount everything they've been told to do and everything they've been directed toward. And I feel like these people then turn around and they say, okay, let's talk about drawing. I can draw hair. Let me teach you how to draw hair. But they don't really understand how they draw hair. And I don't think that I understand how to draw hair any better than these people. But I think I understand that I don't understand how to draw hair. And I think that's really important. Like, I've talked a little bit about this process where, you start off, you've got your hair, like, let's say you're going to, I don't know, let's create a new layer and we'll work on that one. Turn off these two. Let's say you're going to do somebody that's got kind of a spring green hair, something in this kind of color here. You're going to do somebody that's got like this color hair. All right, we'll put a little spot up here so we know what color it is. Now, what you're going to want to start with is you're going to have some idea of this person's skin tone, and we'll use a bright cartoony one. And the head is just basically a circle and a square, and that's really all there is to it. So this will give you your basic head shape. You just kind of form it up. Once you get the head shape that you want, now you get into putting your hair in. And putting your hair in is fairly simple. You've got hair in the back, right here. And it's going to spring up out of the scalp, and it's going to stream around like so. Okay? And you've got hair in the middle, okay? Like right around here would be your ear, right there. So you've got hair that comes down in the middle that's probably not as long as the hair in the back. And then you've got hair in the front, which again springs up and outward, and it's kind of in this sort of vein. And now you've got a basic sort of outline of where the hair is. If we now take the brush and we go, okay, let's kind of rough in where the eye is. So there's the eye right there, and we've got kind of this idea of where the hair is. And you just kind of draw the hair as clumps. And then you take those clumps and you just go, okay. So these clumps are going to be the color of the hair. No problem. You just kind of clear off all this stuff there. Since we're doing this all in one layer, it's not behaving the way I'm typically used to it. But once you've roughed in kind of your clumps of hair and they are where they go, then at this point, what you want to do is you want to jump in and you want to do some shading. So to do your shading, you're going to come in here and you're going to go, okay, we're going to go cooler. We're going to go more saturated. And we're going to go darker. So now here is kind of, this is what the bottom of the hair looks like. If your light is coming from over here, you want this side of the hair to be darker. And then you want your highlight is going to be like just the opposite. You're going to make your highlight warmer, you're going to make it less saturated, and you're going to fit it into that general space. And this is kind of an anime style highlighting and whatnot. You also want kind of a slightly mid-tone to add a little bit of variation in there. And I'm not great at this, obviously. Also, I'm just kind of rushing through the whole process. But that is the basic concept. And one of the things here is that back of the head should really come farther out. I've also found that working with the fingertip blend for the fingertip blend for hair highlights has proven very, very useful. And honestly, you can use it with just like the main color to kind of cut in to the highlights. And that basic process of just knowing you've got your primary color, like so. You got your primary color, you got the direction of your light, and then from that direction of your light, you want to shade everywhere that's away from the direction of that light, and then in the direction of that light, you want to highlight. And that's fairly simple. And then jumping in with the fingertip blend, I have found to work really, really well for hair. And I don't know that that really is coming across very well on the image, but you know, you end up with this kind of thing. And that's not bad. It's a process, and it's not a process that I'm great at, and it doesn't look fantastic, but it is a process that works. And if you look at actual anime art, you can see that it's very much the way a lot of people are doing this kind of stuff. Like if I grab this picture of Akari Koda and you jump in on this, you can see that we've got the light coming from over here, like so. We get the light coming from over here. So we get the light coming from over here, and we've got the base color of the hair, and we've got a shadow color, and the shadow color goes underneath of the hair away from the light. And then you've got the highlight color that goes in the direction of the light. So you put that kind of highlight on there. And you can see this over and over again. And similarly, you've got the same kind of front, middle, and back thing going on. You don't have it going on in this one because she doesn't have any bangs. But if I were to grab a slightly different picture, if I come over here and I go, here's a picture of Mimaru from, I don't remember what anime this is. If I just grab that, you can see here that the hair is divided between there's kind of a back section here behind the ears. There's a midsection here just in front of the ears. And then you've got this front bit here. And you can see here's the midsection kind of poking out. Here's the midsection right here. And here's kind of a three-piece front section. And then there's your back section right there. And all of that kind of fits in together. And I feel like a lot of people talking about how to draw one thing or another don't really talk about the technique and why it works, or what exactly they're trying to do, or what they're trying to represent, or just really, I don't think they're paying attention to much of anything most of the time. I feel like a lot of them are just like, look at what somebody else has done and then copy it. And if you just do that over and over and over again, then you'll eventually develop a sense where you're like, oh, if I don't do what's in the stuff that I copied, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. And that may be true, but you don't understand what you're doing or why you're doing it. And I think it's really important to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. I think the process of figuring out why you're doing the thing you're doing is quite possibly one of the most important parts of learning to do anything. Because I said this over and over again, drawing is just about knowing what lines to draw, where to draw them, and why they need to be drawn. I feel like a lot of people are just skipping the why because they know where to draw the line, and they're like, I don't know why to draw the line. I think that's the missing step in being able to draw from imagination, or being able to paint from imagination. And one of the things that I keep running into with oil painting tutorials is a lot of people that are saying, you know, move from the largest bits down to the smallest bits. So you would kind of start out by roughing in the shape of your character's body, and having done that, you would then start going, okay, well, what is this person wearing? And you would go, okay, let's start out by putting them in, I don't know, a kind of yellowish shirt, and we'll put them in this blazing chartreuse color right here. So I'll put them in this blazing chartreuse color, and we'll also give them a kind of let's give them something from the opposite side of the color wheel, a kind of a dark purple, but we'll desaturate it. We'll go, okay, so here's this skirt that they're wearing, and we'll let them have a bare midriff. We also wanted to have a belt here, put a belt around there, and you just kind of go through and you add these little things in, and you go, well, since we've got somebody with purple skirt, let's give them purple hair. There's no good reason not to. And you gradually rough this stuff in, and as you rough this stuff in, you just sort of individually start to go, okay, here's sort of the shading that we're looking at here. You just kind of rough that in, and you improve it bit by bit, and you just go, here's the arm, and we're shading over on that side, so let's kind of rough that in. Here's the skirt, and we'll shade over here, and here's again the Skin we're going to shade over in that side right there. And you can gradually start improving the general shape of things and the size of things. And the image starts to kind of take shape. And I think this method, I think this process actually has a lot of potential, and there's a lot of room where you can kind of rough something out and then improve it, and you can sit here and go, okay, she's gonna have like her thumb up here and her fingers right through her underside here, and maybe the little fingers coming down over there, and I think starting from this kind of distance approach, and when I say a distance approach, I mean that, like, you know, you put this at a sufficient distance, it doesn't look bad. You know, that's not a bad image. And I think that zooming out and taking a look from a distance can often show you things that you wouldn't see by just, like, reversing the canvas. I mean, obviously, there's some shit wrong here. There's definitely some shit wrong here. So let's Control-Shift-T, and we'll try to even that out. Yeah, looks good. Now flip that over. And you can definitely see that there was a lean on that I had to fix. But by fixing it this early in the process, before doing a whole bunch of details, the details don't look funky. The details don't look all messed up. And I feel like there's a lot more promise in this for, like, actually getting stuff done, because you can start off, you can go, well, this is the kind of environment where I want it to be in, and here are like the broad strokes of what that looks like. And then you can fix the broad strokes and then add in more details, and you can fix the details, and you can do each of these individual things on different layers, because working digitally, you have a lot more flexibility, you have a lot more options and a lot more tools than somebody who's working in oils. But to work with it from the standpoint of somebody who works in oils and thereby doesn't have these tools and has to get it right the first time, I think you learn a lot more that way. I think you get better results. Not that I'm getting a whole lot of results, but yeah, that's where I'm sitting on all of this, and that's what I've been working on all week, and I haven't been exactly coherent during this. Oilpaint.clip. Go ahead and save that, because shit needs to be saved, and you know, do the little YouTube dance, like, comment, subscribe, all of that happy horse shit that makes the Googles happy. And that's what I had to go over today. That's all there is. There is no more. I don't know. I just feel like it was going more and more off the rails the farther I went. But yeah, that's kind of the stuff that I've been working with this week. I'm also trying to get a better handle on how to do streams people actually want to watch, because nobody really watches a lot of these. I am getting the occasional subscriber, but nobody's really watching for more than a couple of minutes. And I kind of want to improve what I'm doing so that people are more interested in watching it. I think there's an incentive to do that based on the fact that, you know, at first, the people I had subscribing to my content were, like, mostly people that I knew. They're friends. They're people I knew from Facebook, people I knew on Discord, that kind of thing. And now it's just, like, random strangers, which is just different. I'm not sure how to respond to that, because I was pushing in this direction to have a channel that was watched by people I didn't know except because they watched the channel. But now that it's kind of sort of happening here and there, I'm really not sure what that means. Still thinking about what that means and how I'm supposed to respond to it and how it should change what I'm doing on the channel, whether it should change what I'm doing on the channel for that matter. And I don't know. I'm thinking about that. So yeah, that's pretty much that's where things are this week. Okay, bye.